All right, welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Larkspur Planning Commission, Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. We have a roll call.
Dr. Swisher,
I am here.
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Here.
Commissioner Hull, and Commissioner Chalmers or Chair Chalmers and Commissioner Campbell are absent tonight, so you have a quorum.
Excellent, good. All right, so the first item is public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Are there any comments about items not on the agenda for tonight? Yes, sir.
James Holmes, Larkspur. I'd like to take a moment to provide a little bit of additional information and focus with respect to the tree ordinance, which of course is particularly appropriate because not only does it come before you in connection with houses, but also the commission is now given the responsibility of addressing requests to cut trees apart from development proposals. And in this connection, I'd like to give you two sets of papers, and I have outlined or I have highlighted the items that I think are significant, although the other text is certainly worth consideration. That is one of them. The other paper is a copy of the tree
action plan.
itself. I have there again highlighted the items which I'm going to refer to briefly. This first document that says, the first question is, what's the latest council policy with respect to trees? And it's stated in this document, which says sequestration and adaptation. That is from the current climate action plan. It doesn't actually say that here on this document, but this is what I received from the staff last Wednesday, and I'm sure they could authenticate it. But I'm just calling attention to the last line down here highlighted on the first page. It says the city will take the following actions to sequester carbon dioxide and adapt to climate change. The rest of it is worth reading, but I'm hitting the bottom line here literally. If you turn to the next page, urban forest, item C, I just want to focus on the policy adopted by the city council, which says minimize removal of large heritage trees. So that's the key policy underlying and most recent policy underlying the heritage tree ordinance. Now, turning to the second document that I gave you and the highlighted portion, the purpose I think is worth reiterating. It says the mature trees of the community are a part of the city's heritage and add to the quality of life valued by our residents. And then it goes on to say native trees such as redwood, oak, and madrone are especially important to the community. And then the last item I'd like to focus on is one which will be somewhat familiar to you, but it merits a little bit of reiteration and emphasis. On the next page, the findings, item F. There are actually two sets of findings, numbered 1 and 2. Number 1 says make both of the following findings. So there's a topographical finding, and then there's a general welfare finding. And of course, the general welfare finding should be considered in light of the council's climate action plan that we should minimize the removal of large trees. Finding number 2, there's an A and a B. The B has to do with unreasonable interference with the property owner's investment-backed expectations. That very seldom comes up. You'll see it's very detailed. It reflects court cases in that regard. But item A is very short, but the key point is the condition of the tree poses a hazard. So it has to pose a hazard. And then it goes on to state with respect to what the hazard relates to: falling, proximity to existing or proposed structures, and or interference with utility services. So there needs to be a specific finding of hazard, and the basis for that, of course, would be the arborist report. But I think that if there is no finding of hazard and there's no issue with respect to unreasonable interference with a property owner's investment-backed expectations, then there is no legal basis under the city's ordinances for the removal of a tree.
Thank you for that, Mr. Holmes. I'll just comment that I had a 120-foot tall redwood tree, several of them fall on my house a month ago. And I would never have thought any of those trees posed a hazard. But I will be happy to show you pictures of my entire backside of my house destroyed by a redwood tree and a new roof having to be put on my house. So it happens. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. But thank you very much for that. And it's a lot of times, you know, I agree with you. I mean, I personally don't like to remove trees, but obviously in certain circumstances, like one of the elements we're going to be discussing tonight, that is going to come up. All right, excellent. So, any other comments of items not on the agenda? All right, then we'll move on. Are there any community development directors reports?
The city received an application, a formal application for the project at 1,000 Drake's Landing Road for, now it's 19 units. And so that project will be coming to you soon, but the plans are online if anyone wants to review them.
Okay. Anything else? Any other?
No, and that's it.
All right. Then we'll move on to the item 4, which is public hearings. The first item on the agenda is 300 Alexander Avenue, APN 021231-23, Rich Pearlstein applicant, which is, it was brought forward from the last meeting. So could we have the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Swisher. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so as mentioned before, this item was before you at like your last meeting. It was continued so that the plans could be revised based on some of the feedback from the commission members and some of the feedback from neighbors of the project. I've prepared a more limited PowerPoint this week, just going over the changes. If you'd like to go back and look at the original one, I have that too. So just as a reminder, they are proposing to demolish the existing home and construct a new 2-story, approximately 4,300 square foot residence and detached ADU. Some of the changes that were required were the reduction of the 2nd-story plate height from 10'6" to 10 feet, revisions to the landscaping plan and the construction management plan, the inclusion of shade studies for the new structure, and revisions to the ADU's location. And as a reminder, this is the site we're dealing with, highlighted in blue there, and then an alternate angle on the right. So here's the revised site plan. It's a little hard to see on the screen here, but this red line is the previous location of the ADU, and it's been shifted forward on the lot, I think approximately 5 feet or so, that the applicant could confirm. Next is the revised plate height. The top image there, I can't kind of scroll it. So the top is what was proposed last time with the 10'6" plate height. And then this lower image is the new 10-foot plate height. And then there are some shade studies that were included in the plan set. They're probably going to be pretty hard to see on this screen. They have, let's see, the June 21st date, the existing conditions, and then the proposed conditions. And September 21st, similar existing and proposed conditions. And here, they also have March 21st and December 21st. Which again, I apologize for how hard this is to read on the screen here. And then here's the revised landscaping plan. And it does note that all the trees and hedges and shrubs, any of the vegetation along the border of the property line between 300 Alexander and the 8 Loma Vista neighborhood comply with the required height limits that follow the fence regulations. They've also shown the updated fence they're proposing here so that the ADU door can open in its entirety. And then here's the revised construction management plan. They have relocated lots of the debris box and the porta potty and everything further away from the property at 101 Pepper. So that's all I have for you tonight. Our staff recommendation is that the commission review and approve the project subject to findings, conditions of approval, and a Class 2 CEQA exemption. And I'm available for questions, and the applicants and owners are here as well. Thank you.
Great. Do we want to go right ahead and have the applicants give their revised presentation? Yep. Mr. Polsky?
Good evening, commissioners and staff. Again, can you hear me? I want to thank staff for their very thorough work, their thorough report. At the last hearing, we received largely favorable reviews from the commission. We were asked to make a few changes, as Alex has mentioned, and I'll briefly describe those changes more like what Alice just said. We proposed at the last meeting to move the ADU about 8 feet from the property line, and this allows for more space between the neighbors at Buena Vista and Loma Vista, excuse me, and our ADU. It allows for a change in the fence line too, so that he can open his door. The door of the neighbor's property is right on the, is almost on the property line. We did a shadow study, computer generated shadow study, which is hard to read, but please review. The new house will cast some shade on the neighbor's pool, but does not, in our opinion, overwhelm the pool. And as you see, the 2 existing trees are casting as much or more shade than the house will be. There's minimal shadows on the neighbor's existing house, and the building next to the pool is actually their garage. As requested at the last hearing, we lowered the plate height at the upper floor from 10.6 to 10. All the commissioners expressed satisfaction of the general aesthetic of the house. And one commissioner even suggested that lowering the wall may actually be detrimental to the look of the house. As such, we all preferred the higher 10'6" plate, but if the commission feels it's necessary, we're happy to lower the plate height to 10 feet. The hedge at the back behind the pool, Larkspur's ordinance requires it to be maintained no higher than 6 feet, unless the neighbors agree. And if the neighbors agree, that it could go to 7 feet, and we're happy to comply with the ordinance. We also, as Alex said, we worked with the construction management plan to keep all the dirty stuff, the porta potty, the concrete washout, and the debris box away from the neighbors during construction. And I'm here with my project architect and my clients to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Sorry. Since Brock wasn't here last time, and he is actually an architect, famous one. Why don't we have Brock, well, famous in Larkspur for sure, make some comments since he wasn't able to do it last time.
Okay, I read through all the comments that were made last time. I actually like the house the way it was. I
Just kidding.
think 6 inches doesn't make a difference one way or the other. I'm glad you kept the roof slope at 5 and 12 as opposed to 4 and 12, because then
Yep.
it doesn't have quite the character. I think it's a nice house. Is it going to affect
Just sorry to
somebody?
interrupt, but they're still gonna have, we're still gonna have
Yes.
public comments.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want, since Brock didn't have the
Okay.
opportunity to discuss last
Okay,
time.
so
then we'll have public comment.
maybe we should have public comments
we can do
first,
that.
but what can I say? I walked the property. I'm very glad something's happening there. So
Right.
we'll take it.
And then of course, if there's things that come up, we can all then again weigh in when we make comments. Why don't we have public comments? Hi.
Greg Riddle and my wife Marlis were at 101 Pepper on the east side of the property. I appreciate, I also think it's an attractive house. It will look beautiful from the street, and my God, it's a tremendous improvement from the way it was. And I appreciate moving the construction stuff away from the our side of the property. That's I appreciate that. And thank you for doing the shade study. I think that was very helpful. The only point I'd make is that damn black locust tree in the privet there have been a bone of contention for years with Mr. Giralis. And a couple of years ago, I was very hopeful that both of those would die. unfortunately, we've had heavy rain seasons and the damn things have popped back up. I'm generally a tree hugger, but I don't hug black locusts and privets. The foliage there is, probably 50%. So the sun, it's kind of a dappled effect. It's still sunny, even though the sun is behind the trees. With the exception of that damn privet, which I would have loved to have gotten rid of years ago. But I do appreciate the shade study. It is helpful. It is reassuring. I would, as I say, the house is extremely attractive from this Alexander. It's kind of overwhelming from our property. As you look straight up to it, it goes up for quite a height. And that's why I would favor reducing the height. 6 inches, it's like big deal. If I had it my way, it would come down 5 feet. But anyway, those are my views. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Vis-a-vis the shade study, so you mentioned you,
It'll be worse. It's going to be worse now with even though it's kind of coterminous with the existing shade from the black oak, but the black oak, the foliage is about 50% of the tree. It's a very unhealthy tree. And 2 years ago, I was convinced it was dying because it had hardly any leaves. So it's going to be significantly worse from my perspective in terms of the shade cast on the pool area, particularly in the best month of the year, September. So if you look at the late afternoon in September, it's going to blanket the pool area.
yeah,
And that's, in my view, that's unfortunate. That is a detriment to our property. And it bothers me that the benefit to the community at large, you just drive by the house on 300, could outweigh the detriment to individual property owners that actually neighbor the affected property and have to live with it 24/7.
any other comments, please?
I'm Marlis Riddle at 101 Pepper, and we've lived there 31 years. The quality of our life is going to be changed, having 2 stories looming down, putting our pool area and our patio in the shade. I would request someone from the panel come to our house, stand on our property. The building is 5 feet from our fence and will change the quality of our life. We've been there 31 years and I feel this is disrespectful to my family, our quality of life, and there is no concern whatsoever. And I just don't think it's getting off to a good start, because we're going to be there another 20 years. So I hope you consider that.
Hopefully more than 20, ma'am.
For the record, I really don't think anybody's going to care about those 2 ends, including the Lamanas, and anybody driving by that street, except for me and the Riddles. And it would be just a nice come down if you had to come down a little bit. And that's the truth of it. As it relates to the landscape plan, it says they want an 8-foot hedge there. It's difficult. I've tried to calculate it as it relates to their height of how high they're raising the yard there and my yard. But if you look at this is a wall. It's about 90 feet long. It's got a planter box in it. And I put that there on purpose with the idea that I didn't want a 6-foot wall there. So it's about a 3 and, maybe a little shy of 4 feet that I'm going to put a hedge in there. And I've called the landscape architect for the Lamanas, and I said, you can plant whatever you want in there. And, I'll grow it 2 feet, so I'll have a 6-foot wall there. And that, I think, because I don't want to look at them and they don't want to look at me, and that's understandable, good fences make good neighbors. And the intent there was to, create a nice blockage that's just not a wall. In their plans, they requested an 8-foot high hedge, and the rule is 6. I don't know if that hedge is going to grow up higher than that. What I plant there and block the sun, and what I put there will not grow. And so that's what I got to say as it relates to their 8-foot. That's it.
Well, you quote Robert Frost, something there is that does not love a wall. And remember, the point of that poem, good fences make good neighbors, was an ironic ending of that poem, if you recall the poem. Anyway, I was a minor in English in college. Any other comments?
James Holmes, Larkspur. I'm addressing the oaks in the oaks in the front. There are a line currently of 5 oaks in the front. They are all they're significant because they are large. They are at the top of the bank, and they're all along the road in front. So they are a key part of the streetscape, and there are no similar oaks nearby. Now, they're numbered 1 to 5 on the arborist report, and I can show you, I can provide it to you if you'd like me to refresh your ideas or your recollections. Only tree number 2 is recommended for removal by the arborists, not tree number 3. However, the applicant is still seeking to remove tree number 3, and I would submit there is no evidence in the record, in the arborist report or elsewhere, that would justify removal of tree number 3. I think at some point he recommended that it be trimmed. He recommends that all the trees be checked and treated for borer issues. But tree number 3 is not highlighted as being a problem in any respect, and therefore it simply does not meet the terms for removal in the Heritage Tree Ordinance 2A. The condition of the tree poses a hazard with respect to disease, danger of falling, proximity to existing or proposed structures, and or interference with utility services. There is a reference in the staff report to proximity to structures, but proximity is not in and of itself a basis for removal. It must pose a hazard with respect to proximity, and it will be noted on the map here that it is no closer to the buildings than some of the other trees proposed to be retained. In fact, tree number 3 will be particularly important now because once tree 2 is removed, tree 3 will be at the end of the line and closest to the corner, and thus most visible. And a comment I think was made in the staff report that it does not have an impact on the canopy. There is not really a tree canopy in the area, and there certainly is not a line of oaks comparable to what we see here. So consistent with the council's policy to minimize removal of heritage trees, and in the absence of any hazard finding under item 2A, and with respect to finding 1B, it would jeopardize or at least impair the general welfare. I believe that this tree number 3 should be retained. Tree number 2 can be removed as recommended by the law.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Any other comments? Any responses to comments from what we've heard? Mr. Polsky, yeah.
I am certainly no tree expert, but I called Brad Eichste, our landscape architect, today to get his opinion about tree two, and he says it's actually not in good shape. And what is in good shape is the tree at the top of the new stairs. It really should be allowed to stand out. And if we keep tree two, it's really hard to landscape the whole slope as it comes down to the street. So there was a reason to take this.
On page 4 here of you want to take a look at this really quickly on page 4? Could you point out, just so I'm clear as to what you're talking about? 'Cause there's 3 oak trees in this picture. Okay. Okay, let me take a peek. Brock, can you find that?
So that's
two. That's the one that's beautiful.
that's 3 right there.
So we're not looking at here.
No,
I
that
just want to
says,
be clear.
that says 2. That says.
This is tree
3.
2 right here. That's tree 2. I believe, yeah.
There's a really beautiful oak.
If it's helpful, I've put the site plan up on the screen, zoomed in. I don't know if it's zoomed
Yeah,
in
yeah.
enough.
Would you mind pointing out the one, because I have to be honest, I looked at I went over on my bike, Dave. Okay.
Brad was saying we want to landscape that slope down to the street, and leaving tree two, it was really made it very difficult to landscape that pathway. Tree. That's the one he wants to remove.
And is that Mr. Holmes, which is the one that you're referring to?
Tree 3 is the one that is proposed for removal without
This one.
a hazard finding. I can show you the chart here.
Yeah.
And tree 2 would go, and that would leave 5, 4, and 3.
Mhm.
But they want to keep 1, which is actually closer to the house.
Yeah, which is this one right here.
But they want to take out number 3, and I believe it's a matter of landscaping convenience. I think they just want a wider open space here.
Got it.
But landscaping convenience.
And the stair.
And the stair.
That's the issue, I think. is
Yeah.
the stairs.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Alex?
Only other clarification I want to make with regards to the 8-foot hedge comment. The applicant submitted a revised landscape plan kind of in the 11th hour that has it at where I mentioned it's going to meet the fence height requirements. So that should be taken care of by what they've submitted.
All right.
Just one quick question relative to that stair, on the new house, is that where the old stairway is, or is it further? Cause I didn't really see a existing,
Well, there's. Yeah.
existing site plan, so.
See here's the stair right there.
Got it outlined on the site plan.
Yeah, I'm,
Excuse me here. So this is the existing staircase here. And this is the new staircase.
where's the existing?
It's these dashed lines.
Oh,
Yeah, right there.
okay.
I see, right.
Okay.
All right, absent any other comments from the audience, from the public, I will take it to the commission. So
I have no questions.
any comments?
Not yet.
Rob?
I really don't have any comments per se. I mean, the house is going to have impact on some people, and that's the case usually with any kind of construction. And I think the house is under the height limit as proposed. Lowering it 6 inches, I don't think makes any difference, to be honest, and probably lowering it another 6 inches wouldn't make any difference. So I'm pretty comfortable with what they've proposed. I kind of leave the tree issue to people who know more about trees. If that tree is a good tree and it can be okay next to the staircase, or the staircase could shift and go up and then go, maybe there's a way to save it, but it's not my expertise, so.
I agree with Brock that I think, I said last meeting that I think aesthetically, it's more pleasing to have the 10-foot 6 than the 10-foot. I think it flattens the roof out and it makes it look a little more squat. And I think that the original design is more elegant. Even though, little changes make big differences. And I think that taking it down from 10-6 to 10 makes a difference. So I would propose that not be changed. I do really appreciate the responsiveness in moving the ADU and the other construction management issues. I think the tree is the most contentious issue, and we do have a heritage tree committee in Larkspur, do we not? That there is an entire committee that deals with that. Not
It's-
anymore?
It's now you, the planning
Oh,
commission.
guess what?
It used to be the rec department with your protests.
Okay.
But now that job, if someone protests tree removal, would come to you.
Okay, well, I agree with Brock. I think that we should go with the tree report. I can see also aesthetically from a building standpoint why you'd want it to remove the trees. But I agree with Mr. Holmes that we should try to preserve the trees that we can preserve to the best of our ability, and possibly some trimming and some arborists love and care for the tree that number 2, which the tree that's I would move to approve the removal of tree number 3, and I think that is a reasonable thing to do. But I guess I would approve it on the condition that they look into all means to preserve the existing trees that are healthy and that can be trimmed or made more aesthetically pleasing. So that's all the comments that I have. All right. So do we,
I have one more comment. So
Sure.
I guess I'm confused on the trees again. So I thought 2 was the one that was going to be removed because it's diseased, and 3 was the one that should possibly be saved?
either, yeah, whatever.
Yes,
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. Yes. Sorry to misspeak. All right, so I guess we move it to, are we done with commenting, done with our commenting? So I think we should move to a motion. Would somebody like to make a motion, Brock?
I would move to approve 300 Alexander Avenue floor area ratio exception, slope use permit, and heritage tree removal.
Were there any conditions on that?
I guess if I can condition it at all, I would like the arborist to take another look at tree number 3 and see if there's a way to save that tree.
And to clarify, are you wanting to approve the 10-foot plate height or the 10-foot 6 plate?
10-foot 6.
Actually, isn't this submittal at 10 feet?
No, the initial submittal was 10-6 and they said they would modify it, but they would prefer the 10-foot 6.
But it has been modified in these drawings.
Yes, these drawings have been modified to show
Yeah.
the 10-foot.
So
change.
I would go for the 10-foot plate. I think that's that's ample.
Okay, okay, I'm confused because these current are the 10-foot plate that currently, but I thought the question was whether or not it could be either or the 10-foot 6 or the 10. So could you clarify that for me?
It's been submitted
it's-
as 10 feet.
They modified it to be 10 feet. You could approve it as 10-foot 6 if you want to, but the plans before you show it as 10 feet.
Okay, so Brock, do you have any?
No, I would leave it at 10 feet.
Okay, I'll go with the experts. Tamara?
Second.
All right, go ahead and take a roll call vote. Please.
Oh, sorry. Trying to think about that motion. We just clarify just so we have it clear in the record. So can we say that the city arborist will review the arborist report and tree number 3, and staff is authorized to require modifications to the plan in order to preserve the tree if possible?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Swisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall.
Yes.
So the motion carries 3 with 2 members absent.
All right. Very good.
Oh, And there's a right to appeal the decision within 10 calendar days by filing an appeal form and the appeal fee with the city clerk.
Right. So let's move on to. Oh, let's see, where's my agenda? 1110 Magnolia here. I'm just trying to find my agenda here. All these papers are here. This is that. All right, 1110 Magnolia, thank you. APN number 020035-12. Anthony Martinez applicant. Could we please have staff report?
Good evening, commissioners. So this evening, the applicant, Anthony Martinez, who is the owner of Internos, is requesting the following permits to allow a change of use from a primarily retail establishment to a wine and beer service establishment with an associated retail aspect and limited food service. The requests are a conditional use permit that will cover the change of use and also the conversion of exterior parking spaces into an outdoor seating area. So outdoor seating requires a use permit. And he is also requesting limited live music. To necessitate this outdoor seating, there is a request to amend an existing parking variance and also a proposal for a joint parking agreement and design review as is required in conjunction with discretionary permits. So the site, the subject site is Internos. It is located in the Merritt Plaza Suites, which is identified by the red star. I have highlighted these 2 adjacent parcels because they will come up in our discussion about the parking variance and also the joint shared parking agreement. So the Merritt Plaza does contain several businesses in a standard strip design. They've historically been utilized as retail, medical, and professional offices, and more recently have included other permitted and conditionally permitted uses, such as salons and instructional fitness centers. The stores in the plaza are generally open during daytime hours from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Currently, Internos is operating Tuesday through Saturday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday and Monday from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Today, the plaza is served by 27 regular parking spaces and 2 accessible parking spaces. Northwest of the plaza is the Vanguard Realty that's at 1118 Magnolia. This is a parcel that is under the same ownership as the Merritt Plaza. And to the north of that is this little strip, which is identified by an APN number. It does not have a street address, and that just has parking spaces on it, and it is also under the same ownership. So I will just start by saying that this project, although it's rather simple on paper, has opened up a bit of a can of worms. There's just a lot of history on this parcel of how things were approved, how parking has been approved and modified over the years. And I've done my best to include a kind of a timeline in the staff report and to really distill quite a bit of public records into a timeline that's easy to digest. So if there's something that you have questions about or want clarification, please do ask. So in 1959, the city council approved a variance to allow a commercial building in the R1 district. At the time, the location of the Merritt Plaza was in the R1 district. The city council made that approval on the condition that the applicant would come back to the planning commission for architectural supervision. So at the time they had a plot plan, they had a very rough sketch. They didn't have a lot of specifics. It was just, they just wanted to know, would they be allowed to have a commercial space here? So in 1962, the applicants, the property owners at the time came back to the planning commission who approved the architectural supervision and variances to the setback and parking. This here is the preliminary, this was what was approved at that time. So in 1962, there was a variance approved for 37 parking spaces where 43 would be required for medical, which all of this was proposed as medical, and all of this was proposed as to be a pharmacy. In 1963, the parcel was rezoned from R1 to C1, which it remains today. And in 1966, the property owner had to return to the Planning Commission to propose changes to the parking layout due to ingress and egress issues that had arisen from this original variance, which approved 37 parking spaces. At the time of the revisions being submitted, that former property owner asked for a variance to construct additional additional storage at the rear of the building. And when that storage was approved, a new variance was approved with a new parking layout that allowed 27 parking spaces where 54 would be required for the uses at the time. In 1973, another variance was approved, which allowed an improvement of the kind of subfloor basement area to be utilized as additional storage space. And the Planning Commission at the time required that 2 parking spaces on the adjacent lot be recorded for the benefit of the plaza. And the 2 parking spaces were on the vacant strip, the APN strip. In 1980, 1118 Magnolia, where currently we have Vanguard Realty. So an applicant came in asking for a conditional use permit to change from what had been a gas station to a car stereo place. So they were kind of looking at it as a service station, not quite classifying it as retail at the time, but still in between, not a gas station, not full retail. Car service is what is used in the staff reports. So the use was approved, and it was conditioned that required a recording of a joint covenant that said 1118 Magnolia would provide 10 spaces for the benefit of Merritt Plaza, and that the loading space behind Merritt Plaza would be provided for the benefit of 1118 Magnolia. Reading through the minutes at the time, my understanding is because this had already been kind of messy and just changed many times, and the records were there's code enforcement things that went on. There was a lot of things that went on. So I believe that the Planning Commission was just trying to codify this and get it cleaned up, because historically these have been under the same ownership. And here I've just shown, this is an image of where Vanguard Realty is today. So this is the site plan that was approved in 1980, and this is a little snippet of that recorded parking covenant that was recorded and remains in effect today, as the covenant is recorded with the land and not with the use. In 1988, the property owner came in with a request to subdivide the existing retail space. So now this has become 5 retail spaces. At that time, the planning director stated that there would be no change in parking requirement to subdivide this space. I've highlighted that from the minutes in 1988, that the building could be subdivided with no change to the parking code. And I would also add that at the time this is developed, and there really wouldn't be anywhere to put additional parking. So as these changes are going on, without demolishing part of the building or maybe moving it somehow, there's no way to accommodate additional spaces on the site as it is currently developed. And from 1997 until the present, various use permits have been approved in the Merritt Plaza, and business licenses granted as well for the Merritt Plaza Suites and at 1118 Magnolia. None of those use permits required amendments to the existing parking variance. And just to remind you, that was 27 spaces where 54 were originally required. This is a memo I found from a use permit for a yoga studio that was approved in 2001. It's no longer in the plaza, but here you can see the thinking at the time was sometimes the uses would come in with a lower parking need than retail. So it was an issue that just didn't come up. Today, we have the first applicant who's proposing a use that would intensify a retail space to a more intense use. In 2002, the building department approved plans for Internos, tenant improvements for Internos, which at the time was, the project description was a wine and beer marketplace. The city did approve a ABC license that would allow wine tasting, and the records do show that the planning department was very clear that this was not to be a bar or a restaurant, but just a retail space that had an associated tasting, so people would be able to try some different things while they were making their selections and go home happy. Today, the applicant has returned asking for the permits that we previously discussed, so he can expand his business to include what is considered in the code language would be a bar. It would only be wine and beer. It would not serve hard alcohol. And it would have this outdoor seating area. So here you can see, it might actually be helpful to look at, what was approved in 2022 a little more closely. So you can see in 2022, there's this bar area, and in some of the other drawings, you can see that there are some seats that are approved here, but it's retail displays, a wine cooler here, retail displays here at the front, no seating inside. Today, what they're proposing is to maintain some of this retail area, including the wine and beer chiller and some retail shelving, but to have some more seating inside, and then also notably to expand into the outdoor area with this outdoor seating, which is temporary in nature. They're not proposing to put any structures in. They would put some planters in, but none of this would be, structures that would include flat work or any kind of construction. And this would be a small seating area that would go over these 3 existing parking spaces. And they also want to put in bike racks so they can have a place for their guests to log up their bikes. So this is, in the plan set, there is a parking diagram. Kenneth Holder, the architect working on this project, was kind enough to give me a revised parking diagram that better reflects the existing uses and the changes that are being proposed. And, as I said, because this has just got quite a lot of records on it. Once I got into doing the deep dive of the research, I was able to point out, hey, it looks like the diagram that's been submitted actually could be revised. So what we have today, we have Magnolia Dentistry here, which has a requirement for 16 spaces, and this is just based on the code definition parking requirements. Next door to that is 1026 Magnolia Hair Salon, has a requirement for 8 spaces. Eyes on Magnolia, which is an optometry office, has a requirement for 8 spaces. Amy's Natural Spa, this is based, again, just like the salon, on chairs inside. So we've estimated 8 spaces here. The fitness center, which, as we've discussed in a previous planning commission meeting, we were going off of previous past practices on how to calculate. We don't have specific requirements for parking for these. So there's calculated like schools, that's 6 spaces. This is currently empty. However, this says office, but we've actually calculated it as retail. And this is correct, 10 spaces. And Internos as it is today, which would require 10 spaces. Changing from retail to this intensified use would require an additional 8 spaces per the code. I'm sorry, additional 10 spaces per the code. And then, of course, they're proposing to take away the 3.
Jackie, I had a quick question. The diagram I'm looking at says inaccessible storage not connected to tenant spaces.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you see, I think it's attachment, one of the attachments has the 1988 building permit plans when the existing retail spaces were subdivided. And that actually shows them as having internal connection. And then that's, I was looking at the 2001 use permit, which doesn't show the entire site plan. It just zooms in on 1108, but it also shows interconnectivity. So I have based my calculations that are in this table in the staff report and also reflected here in this diagram on on full connectivity to that storage space. And it does seem like there was some times maybe, and again, I don't have staff reports from these older items dating back into the 70s and 80s, but I was able to review the minutes. And it does seem like sometimes staff and the commission at the time were of the idea that they could separate, like, this is storage, so it has a lower intensity, while the front of the suite is retail, so it has a higher intensity. However, the code language today doesn't work that way. We calculate all of the square footage as one use. We wouldn't delineate some of it as storage and some of it as retail. We say if it's a retail place, then all of your square footage is going to be calculated.
But all of the 1108, 1100, they all go all the way into that storage area. And
As
there's,
far as I know, based on the building permit record.
okay.
And I can pull that up when I'm finished with this. I can show you that approved building permit that I have on file. And then just before I move on, so Internos would continue the retail aspect with prepared food, wine, and beer and other incidental retail products being sold for offsite consumption. The assembly would not exceed 49 people per the building and fire codes. And there would be no more than 34 seats in the indoor seating area. The proposed hours for the modified use would be from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. And then would be staffed by 2 to 3 full or part-time employees. The proposal that with the outdoor seating area positioned over the outdoor parking spaces would be defined by planters, the stationary bike rack and tables. And the plans are currently showing 4 tables with a total of 18 seats, but those tables could accommodate 1 or 2 seats more. Additional improvements include removing a non-heritage cypress tree from the side of the building, new exterior signage, new exterior lighting to include string lights across the outdoor seating area. The applicants have also proposed an outdoor canopy and heaters. However, as those were not included in the plans, we are proposing that the condition, we've included a draft condition that they should come back to staff, and if the commission agrees that we could approve those administratively, depending on the size and the materials, they may need additional permits from the fire department or the building department. But from a design review standpoint, we would like to be able to have an idea of exactly what that would look like before we say okay to it. So we've got a couple options here how to move forward. We can amend the existing parking variance, which would be required for this outdoor seating area. It can be done just to simply remove the space. Because the parking variance required 27, and today there are 29 spaces on site, there's really only one net loss of required parking. However, I will point out that at the time the original variance was approved, the uses there only necessitated 54 spaces. Today, we estimate that there's about 68 spaces that would be required for the existing uses, and then going up to 78 for the bar. We'd also like you to consider that some of the existing uses may change in the future, and if the application is supported, we would recommend wording the conditions of approval to allow any of the non-retail business spaces to be able to convert back to retail or another low intensity service without having to return for future variances. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to go through this every time someone wants to change their use within one of those suites. I think the only time that we may have to come back is if someone proposed another restaurant or bar, which is our highest parking intensity. As it's infeasible to create additional parking on this site, as we've discussed previously, the staff does believe that it's reasonable to request this parking variance to be amended. For the joint use parking agreement, per the Larkspur Municipal Code, up to 50% of the required parking can be located on an adjacent lot within 250 square feet of the subject site if those existing uses have primarily opposite operating hours, such as a bar or restaurant that's primarily operating at night and on the weekends versus a realty office that's primarily operating during the day.
I'm sorry, you said within 250 square feet, you mean
Sorry, just
250 feet?
250
Yeah,
feet.
okay.
Originally, staff was really wanting to see this joint parking agreement be recorded. However, that would require cooperation on behalf of the property owners. And I do not feel confident that that is something that we can condition and know will actually happen. It's held under an ownership. It's represented by a property management company. The property management company has signed off on this application. However, the application itself does not go into the specifics of the joint use agreement. I have exchanged some emails with the property management about what it would be, but have not gotten a very robust response that leads me to believe that they may follow through with that condition for recording a new joint use agreement. Not impossible, but I have been trying to get them on the phone and to no avail. So I just want to make it very clear that while we can go that route, it might be an uphill battle, and we do have the option to just go forward with amending the existing variance. As far as the live music that's being proposed, the applicants are proposing live music up to 8 times a week. They are proposing that the live and/or amplified music would occur only indoors and would not exceed the outdoor noise limits as defined by the noise ordinance. As far as design review goes, the applicants are not proposing any major structural changes to the exterior. And as I explained, all of the improvements for the outdoor seating would be non-permanent in nature and easy to remove should the use change in the future. With that, I will turn this over to you. Please let me know if you have any additional questions or if I can go through any of the attachments on the large screen. The applicant and the architect are both here to take questions as well, and I believe they'd like to present the project.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have the architect and the applicant present.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just let you look at these. I realized I stopped going through my thing, but here's the outdoor seating that's proposed. Along with the current exterior. Here's the proposed signage. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. I've been here, Kenneth Holder Parlett Architecture. As you know, I've been here quite a few times, including my own home last year. And there's something unique about a chance to get to present this project. This has been very special because normally I don't get to come up here and talk about something that would really benefit Larkspur as a whole. It's normally someone's private home. So 14 months ago, I started working with Tony. I helped him achieve his vision for Internos as a wine and craft beer retail space. But no one knew it was going to be this successful. I think even he might have not known this was coming. Well, it was, and turns out, it really tapped into something that the local community wanted. So as responding to popular pressure, it started growing, and he added some additional seats and added some outdoor seating, and it was all very harmonious, but unfortunately, it wasn't really official. It was, he had the understanding because it was on private property, and the parking agreements were all intact as far as he understood. It seemed perfectly legitimate. At one point, the planning staff did approach him and say, hey, you need to go official. There's enough impact where you've got to kind of bring it to tow. So at that point, he removed the outdoor seating. Later, it was clear the city just said, hey, go ahead and bring it back to the approved retail operation. So by that time, the business had really operated for more than a year and had become very popular. No known problems that we at least were ever brought up to Anthony as the owner. So, so then we put in place this proposal that's in front of you now. The bulk of what is being proposed is actually to return back to where it was before all this was removed. So it has, whether official or not, there was no ill intent, but it was maybe, it was premature, but at least it has some road tested operational success. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is, I mean, and not to resort to theatrics, this is the 198 letters of support, and including every tenant of Merritt Plaza. In here are also 3 former mayors have signed these. So clearly there's some community benefit going on here. So, so he wants to get the right thing done, and he needs the flexibility to furnish this in a way that really supports the guests. So Tony lives here in Larkspur. He's been known to walk to the space. He's invested in the community. I'll have him talk more and maybe answer direct questions about what the final format in a dream scheme would be, and then you folks can decide which parts you can agree to or not. I know that the live music, by the way, I think he's proposing 8 times a month, not per week. Yeah, I think so. So what else? I think the report, I think, covered basically every aspect. But I think what's really just more on a conceptual level is just to measure. I understand we're proposing taking over 3 parking spaces, but the offset and benefit to the community, especially when we're talking about, on paper, this plaza is already deficient by 30 spaces per the published codes. So I don't know that 2 spaces taken up with seating and 1 kind of straightened out to include some parking that for biking. I don't think that's going to be I don't think, well, it seems like everyone supports that it's going to be a positive change. So I think the points to consider tonight, yes, there's some parking covenants and some agreements, some legal, some internal, that are still not 100% clear. I don't know if you as the planning commission want to go into that because there may have been leases signed that weren't fully compliant. But the Tony, the tenants at Vanguard Realty, and the landlord are in an open communication to get these resolved, to create signage that supports agreements so that there aren't any stresses that might come up. So I don't know. I was looking at the Larkspur general plan and the goal 5 and 6. I was talking with the planner today about goal number 5 and 6 seem like they're perfectly written for this project. Enhance the attractiveness and viability of existing commercial areas. And number 6, encourage existing commercial districts to provide an adequate mix of neighborhoods serving businesses and to be accessible by means other than the auto. So I think those are pretty compelling points. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Anthony Martinez.
Hello, Council. I'm Anthony Martinez. I'm the owner of Internos, and I feel like we have a special place there, and I want to be able to invite all the families to come join us and have food and drink and community. And I do feel that I'm fortunate with all the people that come in there because we do have a nice community over there, and it touches me. And I just like to have the outdoor seating so we can have a lot of the families come back. And also, there's not much up there, besides Arno Thai and M&G's. There's not really much places to go and drink and eat. All right. Thank you.
We have any public comment?
Hello, I'm Lene. I'm a friend of Tony's. I've also worked with him in Internos and formerly, and I'm my own business owner in another city. I hate public speaking, so bear with me, and I didn't plan anything. I strongly support everything that was just said. I think Kenneth presented it so well, and I have seen both on the patron side and on the business side of this particular business, how much that community is a community and has come together there. So I'm not from Larkspur, but I'm from Marin. I'm a native of Marin. I'm a unicorn. And I obviously I love Tony. He's a very good friend of mine and I support the business, but I also just think it would be so great. And it has been so great for the community and bringing people together. So that's, yeah.
Well, you would never know that you don't like public speaking. You've got a beautiful speaking voice. Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Brad Phillips. I'm a friend of Tony's as well. One thing we have to think about with the parking spots, a lot of the people that go here now are using Lyft, Uber. And that's how we get around, because even if you go and have a couple drinks nowadays, or you don't want to take that risk. So there's a good amount of people that use those services. Whenever we're there, even when it was full back, a year ago, the parking spots weren't even filled even at night. So I just want to put that out there as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello. I'm Carly. I'm a Larkspur resident. Not from Marin. I hail from the middle of the country. So I stumbled upon Internos. I live in one of the local apartment buildings and they had to check out my building for a gas leak. And so I took a book and I walked down the block and I stopped in Internos and it was the best potential gas leak ever, because I stumbled upon this community of kindness that I treasure. And I've met so many people that live in the local apartments around the area. And so that's also something to take into consideration, is you have a lot of people like me that just walk over. But what Tony has created is really unique. I've lived in California for about 20 years now. And other than Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood, this is just, it's just a little rowdier, I must say. When I was in my 20s. This space is lovely and everyone is welcoming and open, and it's really special. So that's my spiel.
Hi, my name is Bagia, and although I've not lived in Marin for very long, but I played cricket here for the last 22 years. You guys know at Piper Park, there's a cricket ground there, a Marin Cricket Club. I'm part of that club for 23 years, and we've always gone to Peso to drink afterwards, or to celebrate things. But when Tony came along about a year and a half ago, we actually went out there and met Tony and saw how the community was just so vibrant there in the North District. Is that what you guys call it? The North District of Magnolia. And some of my friends live up there that I play cricket with. So since then, I've been going there and I've been supporting Tony. And when I found out about the situation, I'm like, you know what, we've got to do something to keep you around and keep you around for good times. I think this area is pretty vibrant, but I think that area can also use a couple of, establishments like this, where people that have families that can go out and enjoy themselves, so they don't have to walk or take a cab or something to come all the way down here. That's the only thing I would say.
Anybody else? Oh, good. Hi.
Hi, Kate Marby. I'm a local Marin resident and I know all of these people. But I love Internos and I've never had parking be an issue there. And like he said, a lot of people do Uber now. No one wants to take the risk, even, after one or two drinks. Biking there is really easy and my favorite part about it was the outdoor seating, especially since COVID. I don't really like to go to small, indoor places when you can be outdoors. And so I would hate to see them lose that opportunity to have outdoor seating. So I would definitely support all the changes they're proposing and hope you do too. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right. Well, what? Yep, sure. Go ahead.
I'm not a great speaker either, but I can write. Sorry. So my name is Philip Harris, and my wife and I live on Francis Avenue, which is directly across Magnolia from Merritt Plaza. My wife purchased the house in 1989, and I think we're the closest single-family residents to Internos, and we love the establishment, and we consider Tony to be a good friend. I think the Chamber of Commerce, you mentioned this earlier, I think the Chamber of Commerce and maybe the City Council agreed to designate that north part of Larkspur as the North Magnolia Business District. And then we had these banners on the lamppost that posted, eat, drink, shop, but you couldn't. I mean, there was, right? And then, and then we had Internos, and for a while we had this full taste of what a new option might look like. Tony is the epitome of a gracious host. We enjoy the atmosphere, the offerings, and we made a point of supporting his business while it was more full and even when it's more restricted. But we especially enjoyed it when the establishment had an expanded menu. It had seating, indoor and outdoor, really comfortable, sometimes music. It was warm and inviting. The seating outside encouraged, it was a bit more boisterous, more fun. Bicyclists would ride up and stop. It was really kind of cool. The wine and food made it a great place to dine out, and we'd love to see that happen again. And, part of the attractiveness is that when it was in full swing, and even now I think somewhat, Internos was attracting guests from outside Larkspur. So they're spending their money here and they're paying sales tax, which supports our community. Just a quick word about parking, because I didn't realize it was a big issue, but it obviously is. Couple things, I think as you mentioned, it's primarily an evening venue. And I think it's the only evening venue of all of those places. And I can tell you, based on anecdotal experience, if you know us, we walk our dog religiously 5 times a day. We walk or we drive out of Francis, first Internos, another 5 times a day. The daytime uses at that from Internos were never noticeable. There was some parking further down, but there were spaces up there. And I can also say that I can't recall a single time, this was mentioned, I think, a moment ago, when every single space was occupied, day or night. And we've been there for a long, long time. So we really encourage the City Council to support this application. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other comments? Excellent.
To, for the public record here today, I know I sent you all an email. We did receive 2 late comments that were opposing the project on the basis that the noise would be disruptive to them. It was a property owner and a tenant of a nearby apartment building on Hillcrest Avenue. Just wanted to make sure.
And I actually did have a question relative to the music and where that would be, presumably not outside.
We definitely wouldn't have it outside. It'd be inside. And we wouldn't be going over any decibels that would be a problem for anyone on the other side of the street or down the street. We'd regulate that.
It is included as a condition of approval as well.
Sure.
We really do live the closest house. There's that storage unit and we're right next to it. I walk that dog at 9:30 every night.
Mhm.
And so I don't hear the music from his place. It's just I don't hear it.
Yep.
And we would be sensitive to it.
Yeah.
If it was an issue.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Going once, going twice? All right. Bring it, the panel. Brock, why don't we start?
Well, I think it's a great idea. And I think all the other businesses looking at them are sort of, they're not utilizing a lot of people coming and going. They're small businesses that probably don't have a lot of people arriving. So I'm not sure how we go about exactly what we need to do to make this happen, but I think it's a good thing. So.
I agree. I mean, in looking at it and I've never had the privilege of going, clearly I'm missing out. But it's now on my list and it sounds like a really great place. I mean, I read, the names on the 198 letters and recognized quite a few and talked to a couple people I knew who raved about the place and begged me to give you what you want. So I was like, okay. The thing that I really am confused about is the parking agreement and how we give the conditional use permit so there's a way to do it without touching it.
So what we can do is just amend the existing parking variance without requiring an additional shared parking agreement to be recorded, especially as it sounds like there's a good relationship between all of the tenants and an understanding of what's going on. I did speak with someone from Vanguard Realty on Thursday of last week, an office admin employee. And, I just wanted, again, since this joint parking agreement is kind of convoluted, I wanted to speak with them about it. And they said, we have some concerns. We want to talk with Anthony. Anthony has been in conversation with Vanguard Realty. My understanding is that they didn't come this evening. They didn't contact me again. So I believe that they're now in support of the project. And I think because it does seem like it may be difficult to get the property managers to record a covenant with the county, that going forward, just amending the existing variance, which doesn't require any action from the property management company, may be the best way. A caveat to that is today, Vanguard Realty has all of the parking painted that says Vanguard Realty only. Anyone who parks here will be towed away. It would be nice if we could have maybe some of that signage amended, maybe even if it's just the tow away signs amended to say, this is available after 5 PM, much like our signage here at City Hall does. I don't know who the burden that would be on, if we want to condition that, if we want to just recommend it. I would leave that up to you.
Okay, well, I picked a bad month to stop drinking, because this sounds like a great place. And I'm really sad I haven't been there, but I'm gonna frequent it now because my wife has not stopped drinking. Actually, you know what? The number of non-alcoholic beers and wines now are just incredible. I mean, my refrigerator is filled with Archers. So there's fantastic. I think that this is exactly what Larkspur needs. I mean, this is, I'm fortunate to live on Wiltshire here, and so I go to Zinn's, which I think is fantastic and fun, and it's a community environment. And I think it sounds like we've created as a magical community environment on the north side of town, which it desperately needs. So I'm in full favor of whatever we can do to help you out. So I would propose that we do what you recommend, that we just modify amend the agreement to satisfy that. Now, will this go back to having the ability to have the outdoor space and what, so he can fully realize what he wanted to do?
Yeah, so the variance will be amended to have language that allows there to only be the 26 spaces.
Mhm.
So that's subtracting the 3 spaces that would be converted.
Right.
And then we would include language that would allow the other suites to also become retail or equivalent to retail. So basically it would say, can you help me? I mean, we're talking about how to condition. There is it? The conditions? Sorry.
Yeah, she's 17. I'll change it
Mm.
to the overall.
So the city has approved a parking variance to allow the following uses at the site. The community development staff's authorized it to allow changes to uses that do not increase the overall parking allowance set forth below and may allow any non-retail uses to convert to retail uses. And then basically it's everything that's in that table. So the existing uses today, and then allowing anything that's non-retail to become retail. So we won't have to go again.
Yeah.
And then what we would do is just strike the condition of approval number 4 regarding the joint use parking agreement.
Okay. How do we go about making that motion?
Okay, so you can make a motion to approve the project subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report, but striking condition of approval number 4. That's it.
Would you want to make any modifications to the condition for the parking variance regarding the signage, or are we okay with?
No, I
letting-
think that that's something that should be done with the cooperation of the individuals involved. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's cleaner that way, and it's, I think people would be fine with doing that.
And just, I do want to point out to the commission that we have several other conditions in here that are not standard for us, including that pop-up vendors coming for food service would need to have and maintain their California Food Service Handlers card. That would be on the burden of the applicant to ensure that they do. We've also included a condition about the city's reusable foodware ordinance. We've got conditions about noise. Conditions about exterior lighting as it relates to the outdoor seating area, and the condition related to the exterior canopy and heaters, so they can come back for administrative approval for those.
That sounds great. Can we also have a condition that no yacht rock, please? Just kidding.
I don't think so.
Just kidding. It's a joke. I've been in a band for a long time, so. And I will die before I play yacht rock. All right. So go ahead, and if you could make that, Brock, can you make a clean motion?
No. Can you cleanly state
Move
that?
to approve the project subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report, but striking condition of approval number 4 regarding the joint use parking agreement.
That's why she's the expert.
Okay, yes.
I second that. Can we
Okay.
have a vote, roll call vote?
Commissioner Swisher.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
And Commissioner Hull. Yes. Motion carries unanimously with 2 members absent. And so
Alright.
there is a right to appeal the decision within 10 calendar days by filing appeal form and the appeal fee with the city clerk.
All right. Congratulations. All right. Yep. All right, let's move on. All right, so. Yep. So next item on the agenda, I'll give time for people to take off. Yeah, take care, guys. All right, so let's do item C, consider draft ordinance amending the text of the Larkspur Municipal Code Title 18 zoning to allow zoning administrator to approve fence height exceptions with notice, but no public hearing. Currently, public hearing is required when findings to be made by zoning administrator and no objections are received by neighbors, like the minor exceptions process, and make a recommendation to the city council.
Truly, I don't have much to add to that. We've discussed this at
Yep.
several prior meetings. The ordinance that's attached to the staff report does incorporate the suggestions made by Chair Chalmers. It's been reviewed by the city attorney, and I think if you have any questions for us.
No, I think we went over this pretty extensively. I don't think we need to make a vote on this now, do we?
What we would like you
just to approve it.
Comment.
Well, that's
You're
open for
opening
public
comment and.
Oh,
and-
yeah, is there any,
yeah.
Mr. Holmes?
James Holmes, Larkspur. I'm a late comer to this process, admittedly, but I think that, and damn it, I haven't read the ordinance and I didn't see it in the staff report, but in any event, I would be a little bit concerned about doing away with a public hearing when one is dealing with a fence height exception in the front or along a road. I do think that those, I mean, I think the policy underlying this proposal is that most fence height exceptions, or many of them, relate to neighbors, and therefore neighbor input is critical. But when it is in the front, and we have had some real rugged proposals in the front, regarding the front, I think a public hearing is worthwhile because a fence in the public, a fence in front is of greater public import than one on the sides, and I think it is affected with the public interest. And I think the public should be given a greater opportunity to weigh in when we are talking about a variance for, not a variance, but an approval regarding the
But
front
for an
fence. Thank you.
exception, great. I think, Mr. Holmes, that was a part of the discussion, that a line of sight and front yard fences will still get a public hearing. It just doesn't exclude those from that, from my understanding of our discussions of last time. Is that correct or not correct?
No, so no public, we would do a public notice to everyone as we
That's
did
right.
today.
Okay,
But instead of, today we would have a public notice indicating that there's a public hearing to consider the fence.
Mhm.
Now we would send a notice saying that the staff intends to approve the application if we could make the findings.
Mhm.
And then they would have an opportunity to object, and the objection would go to the planning commission for a
that's right.
hearing.
So basically it allows for the ability to do what you are suggesting, but it just takes away some of the red tape and speeds through process. But it does still allow the public to make a comment when such a thing, if there's a, it just means that not every fence height exception needs a public hearing.
Well, the notice, the notice would only go to the neighbors and the people in the immediate vicinity. There would not be a general public notice, I don't believe. So that there would be a lot less public notice than there is now with respect to a front fence.
So the ordinance does require the notice to be posted as well. So at the three bulletin boards and at the project site as well. So anyone who would have seen the fence height hearing notice would also see the notice. And I wanted to note too, that in the 2 years I've been here, no one's ever attended one of these hearings. I think.
Probably Mr. Holmes has.
I have, yes.
Yes, I know you.
I actually think there is something to what you're saying relative to the front yard fences. Because I think the risk is that you have a community that wants to wall themselves in. And they all go, fine, you know, you do it, we'll do it. And all of a sudden you're driving down the street with, you know, so I'm a little bit gun shy about the idea that the front yard fence, if everybody agrees, can be 6 feet too.
Well, I would like to point out that there are findings that are related to that. Specifically finding E, that the fence height would not significantly visually obstruct or reduce the openness of the street scene comprised of front yards and street side yards. Additionally, that the fence height would not block significant views from structures, and that the height and design of the fence would be compatible with the scale, mass, and architectural character of the structures in the neighborhood, and that the person making those findings would be the zoning administrator still. So it
Right.
wouldn't.
I mean, that's my understanding, that it does give you, it just gives you a little bit more ministerial authority compared to having a large public hearing.
I mean, currently the zoning administrator holds the public hearing and makes those findings. We just hold a public hearing that is usually not attended. That is true. It is very rare that we have someone attend a zoning administrator fence height exception permit. I think when there are objections and they can't be approved by the zoning administrator, they come to the planning commission, and that's usually when we've got this conversation coming before us. And that would still remain an option, and it doesn't cost, there's no fee to protest a permit like this. It's just a written protest has to be submitted.
So I would propose that we submit it as written. Brock?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that makes sense.
It wouldn't be the de facto that they would be approved. We would still have to, the zoning administrator would have to make the findings.
I just think it streamlines the process and makes it more efficient.
Yeah.
And it still allows people to come and make a thing. I just think, decrease bloat and, and time and people's effort and stuff. That's,
And the noticing's still the same.
yes.
Correct, yes.
And I thought the other main key point was reducing the fee.
Yes, it would reduce the fee. When our fee schedules went to the flat fee versus deposit base, fences specifically became quite a bit, the side exception permit became quite a bit more expensive, and that is because it necessitates a public hearing held by the zoning administrator.
Right. And
It
it's
went from I think $1,000 to over $4,000
Yeah.
in one year because of this change.
I mean, it was 4,500, wasn't it?
What was it? Yeah, it's 40, something like 4,500, but before it was just a $1,000 deposit, but people actually didn't know what it was going to cost because it was an hourly cost.
Yeah.
So by the time they were done, they might pay $3,000 for the application, not necessarily 4,500 all the time. But trying to do cost recovery, it was all the zoning administrator hearings were set at the same amount because they
Yeah.
usually all entail the same amount of work.
Anything that saves some people, money is, I'm in favor of that. And it also reduces your time, which is,
And hopefully
Good.
encourages
So,
compliance.
and encourages compliance. Yeah. Okay. So do we need a vote again on that? So go ahead and take a roll call.
Yeah, so you're moving to recommend that the city
Yes.
council approve the ordinance. Commissioner Swisher.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Hull.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0 with 2 members absent.
Okay. Moving on to item D, consider the draft ordinance amending the text of the Larkspur to define indoor fitness center and gym uses in districts where the uses are allowed and parking requirements, to make a recommendation to the city council.
And we're just recommending that you continue this item to the May 28th planning commission meeting.
I'll move, we continue the, to May 28th.
I second that.
Commissioner Hull,
Yes.
Commissioner Swisher.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
All right. I can't second. I know, you're right. I can't
Yeah,
second.
Then I'll second.
Okay, good. Robert's Rules of Order. All right, 5 business items. So let's move on to that. One is we have to approve the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting minutes. Brock was not here.
Can we actually do that with?
I don't know
I
if-
not being here.
I don't think we have a
being there.
quorum to approve the minutes, so there's only 2 of us.
You could put it off to next month if you want.
Yep. I'm,
Can I tell you a small
Yeah.
teeny tiny edit?
Sure.
In. What is it? It's 300 Alexander at the end. Public hearing, at the very end of B. It says that, the motion was continued to May 28th of 2026.
Oh, okay.
that'd be really continued.
I know.
I don't think they'd be very happy.
Yeah. All right, so that has been moved to the next one. Any planning commissioners reports?
No.
Not unless anybody wants to see baby pictures from the.
No. Okay, I'll show you my tree falling on my house pictures. All right, so then I guess we are finished, so I will make a motion to adjourn. I can make a motion to adjourn. Yeah,
Okay.
I can make a motion to adjourn. I can't
I'll-
second it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned. That was a fun meeting.